that you prayed after my talk acts as a mechanism that actually helps you make that connection for the very first time. This is you saying to God that you want him to be part of your life and you want him to be in the driving seat and take hold of the steering wheel. But that prayer was just the beginning of a very exciting journey. The purpose of this DVD is to explain briefly what is the next step. What's next? Somebody once asked me the question, Barry, how did you get from where you were to where you are now? How did you go from being a drug addict, drug dealer, criminal, to being a public speaker and a director of a charity? And I thought about this for a moment, and then I told him about my journey. I told him about the 3 things that I started to do after making that decision to become a Christian. First thing that I did was I started to read my Bible. The second thing was I started to pray. And the third thing was I started to go to a local church. The Bible is God's instruction book. Those letters, B-I-B-L-E, stand for Basic Instructions Before Leaving Earth. The Bible is not just one big book, it's actually 66 books within one big cover. God's instruction book comes in 2 parts. Part 1, Part 2. Christians call it the Old Testament and the New. So don't try and read it from front to back like you would read a normal book. Why not look where the book of John is, which is in Part 2, the New Testament. Read that once, read it twice. It's the best book for you to start with. The second thing that I did after becoming a Christian was to start to pray. Prayer is you talking to God. It's you having a one-to-one with him. When you pray, you are involving God in your situation. When you pray, you don't have to use fancy words. Use normal, everyday language, but miss out the bad language if you do swear. Please remember who you're talking to. You're talking to God, so give him respect. Listen, prayer does work. God does answer your prayers. He may not answer them in the way that you want them to be answered, but he really does answer prayer. When you pray, ask him to help you. When you pray, ask him to help your friend. When you pray, ask him to help your neighbour. You can even ask him to help people you don't even know. I often pray for people who are locked up in prison, people I've never even met. When you pray, you can also use this time to thank him for the things that he has done for you. When I look back on my life, since that very first time I walked into that church and look at the changes that have gone on, I can look at the things that God has done for me, and as I follow that trail I can often thank him in prayer. So I look back and I think, I remember that time, and I thank God in prayer. Another thing that I did was to start to go to church. Before going to church in 1995 for the very first time, I'd not been in church at all. Well, actually, when I think about it, I used to go to chapel when I was in Strangeways to get out of myself for 1 extra hour on a Sunday. But after making that decision to get God in the driving seat, I will go to church on Sundays, and then I will go to meetings in the week. And it was during that time that I met friends, and it was through these friendships that I started to learn a lot more about the Christian faith. Some of you watching this might not be able to attend a church. You might be in prison, for example. Well, why not start to go to chapel? Start to go to the meetings that are going on in the week. There might be an Alpha course going on. There might be a Bible study. Go to them, because that's the place you'll find people who are Christians, and it's also the place where you'll learn a lot about your faith. Another reason for going to church is so that we can all come together, all Christians in one place, and it's a fantastic time then for us to worship God together. So how did I get from where I was to where I am now? I read the Bible, I prayed, and I started to go to church. Listen, you have started the most exciting journey. You have made that connection with God. He's now in the driving seat. What's next for you? What's the next step? Get a Bible and read it. Start to pray. Start to go to church. When you do these things, you will start to grow as a Christian. And all that stuff that needs to be dealt with in your life, God will deal with it. And you will become the person that God wants you to be.